Oh, wait, let me stop this and start it.
Good afternoon, Shelby Henry.
Belinda Kennedy, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So, why do you want to work at the school?
Well, I've heard great things about the school, mostly about the administration and how they interact with the teachers, and that they are fair and that they have your back, but they listen to the whole story before making any type of a judgment. And if that is true, then that really truly sounds like a place that I want to work.
I believe it's true. I hear that from a lot of our teachers. So, it's a nice to know that that's what's out there in the community.
Yes,
It's nice
yes.
to know that.
The school comes highly recommended.
Well, that's also good to hear, especially right now, since we are having an issue with trying to find quality teachers, and it's very competitive. So it's definitely an asset that we need to know that we have. So I have a couple questions I have to ask you. They're very standard. We ask these same questions to all of our candidates.
Okay.
And are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What would you bring to our staff that would be unique?
Well, first of all, I am a 61-year-old woman who is coming from the corporate world. So although all of teaching is only 4 years of experience, my background out in the corporate world has given me so many things to draw on and to help students with just everyday life experiences. There's some things that you can just tuck into a lesson that's just life knowledge and just things that they need to know, and being able to interact with them and come from a place of just life skills, not only just being a mom, but also just having that world experience at my back. I think that that's pretty unique. Being a new teacher is not, but being a new teacher at 61, I think is fairly rare.
So you said this is your second career.
It is.
In your first career, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. It was more of a management role. I worked for several real estate companies that managed medical office buildings across the country. And I ran teams to go in and evaluate those hospitals, not only the equipment and the time life of the equipment, but the leases and the financial situation of the buildings and how all of that would relate to that each individual hospital's financial package and what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to maintain the buildings, whether they wanted to put it in a group and sell them. But it was all using that other side of my brain. And so when I decided I wanted to teach, I really wanted to delve into the creativity side. And I haven't looked back for a second.
And so the position that you're currently at, you are teaching a fashion design class?
Fashion design 1, fashion design 2, and interior design.
And do you feel those classes are utilizing any of the previous experience from your first career?
Well, absolutely, because I did have a brief period of time after having my second child where I left the corporate world for a period of time and kind of went and did things on my own. And one of the things that I did was start a clothing line for toddlers to probably second graders. And it was all for holiday, high occasion clothing, just really unique, fun stuff. And I sold it, and I designed it, I made it. And so it's much easier teaching fashion when you're telling them how to not so much learn how to follow patterns, but also to be able to change them and turn them into something that fits their personality, and not be afraid to be able to take what somebody else has done and build on it and do something different. And if I teach them anything in fashion, that's what I hope I teach them, is to not be afraid to put their own spin on things. And having done that and learned that the trial and error of that and how to make it better, I feel like I'm able to encourage them without personal fear, because I have done it and failed and accomplished, at the same time.
Nice. I'd like to see, do you have any later on, if we have an opportunity, maybe?
I do.
That's very
I
nice.
have a whole big book of all the different things.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So yes, it was really sad when my daughter got beyond the size that I was making, because she was the perfect model.
I can imagine. So as you know, in teaching, it's not solely just your own class, and you may have times that you need to do cross-curricular. And so the question I have for you is, how have you incorporated cross-curricular standards into planning and teaching?
That is a great question, actually. When I came into the school that I am at right now, previously we didn't have a lot of opportunities to be able to work with teachers that were in other departments. We were kind of isolated where we were. And where I am right now, I think that the biggest positive of where I am right now is that the CTE program is so strong, and I am in with 5 other teachers, both male and female, that are family and consumer science. And we are constantly trying to find ways to be able to take what they are doing and bring it into ours. Like, we're planning a fashion show. And so we're talking to the construction department about making the staging for it. The theater department, we're working with their ideas and they're turning it over to the kids of how are we going to light this fashion show, and working with the hospitality department to see that when we have this fashion show, how are they going to be able to bring in, cocktails, fake cocktails, and, food to be able to feed the people that bought the tickets to come to the fashion show. So it's all also about branding. So we're kind of taking this fashion show, whatever we come up with as a group, and whatever the idea is about the brand, and every one of these different departments gets to have a say in that. So everybody's helping to create this idea. They're all buying into it. And then we all get to work together to make it come to fruition.
That's amazing. Do you find who is the instigator on coming up with the ideas? Is it student driven? Is it teacher driven? How are you getting those other people involved?
A lot of it's student. When we started talking about the idea, I have students who also were taking, some of my interior design students also are taking construction. And so they were like, oh, you need to meet Mr. because he loves to do special projects. And what you're talking about is right up his alley. So I go down and I meet him and he's like, oh, have you met this student? Because that's what they want to do with their life. They want to go to, to New York, into the fashion world, and they want to learn how to build sets for fashion design. Well, ding, there's the perfect person who had friends that were in other classes. So it kind of all, I would say it was more student driven. I mean, I had the idea, but they took it and ran with it and took it so much farther than I think I ever dreamed that they could take it.
Isn't that an incredible feeling?
It really is. I just get so proud of these kids. And that's why I teach high school. They're right on the precipice and they're either going to spread their wings and fly or they're going to flounder a little bit. And I think that's our job, is to be able to push them from behind and saying, you can do this, you can do this. And then watch as they make those little tentative wing movements that they're going to do it.
So, and having the right instructor to do that so they feel comfortable and safe. And so, which sounds or appears that you have provided that in your classroom.
Well, to me, that is key. From the second they walk in the door of my classroom, I want them to feel like they matter, that they are important. I know who each individual person is. I start to learn their stories. They start to learn mine, but that they look forward to coming to it because they know that I am going to be fair. I am going to be consistent, and I'm always going to be there to listen. And that it is safe. I want them to always feel safe. They make me feel safe in a school that, and sometimes isn't very safe, but I know that they have my back as much as I have theirs. And that's a really good feeling.
That's nice.
And I'll miss that a lot.
So how have you organized your classroom to maximize instruction?
Okay. I teach interior design. So my classroom, it's just awesome. It is. It is. There's pictures on the wall. It's just, everything's decorated. There's Christmas lights on the ceiling so that we can turn the lights off and still have ambient lighting. It's full of color, and the kids help change it around every so often when we get bored with the way that it looks, and move desks and things around. In the beginning of the year, I have to start by putting people in seats so that I can know who's who. I'm slower at that than a lot of the younger teachers. And so they have to sit in those seats for a little bit longer probably than I would like. But once I know who they are, then they're like, I think it will work much better if we could do this, that, and the other. And teaching fashion and interior in the same room, the needs are often very, very different. So it's important that these kids understand that. And so as they're thinking about ways they can change it, they also know that there's other kids that are going to be coming in and using this room who, are going to have sewing machines out and that type of thing. So I let them have as much voice in it as possible. because I want them to I want them to just all day long look forward to coming to my class. I mean, I want them to just can't wait to be there.
Mhm. It sounds like they are having an exciting classroom, looking at it, because I know some classrooms have the traditional yellow, non-inviting walls, so having color is exciting enough, right?
Yeah,
And
well,
then
mine's,
having a
yeah.
teacher,
Well,
as-
mine's mostly pink, and the boys don't mind it because there's a lot of purple and blues and all those other colors in there too. But at first they'll go, Miss Kennedy, is this room like really pink? And it's like, yes, but you know what? You're gonna love it. And then they just don't even, it doesn't bother them. So
Very nice. So, which, boy, this leads into the very next question. So, what do you do to stimulate that interest in learning?
I think it has to start from the second you come in class. When I interviewed for my present job, they sent me to courses through Flipping Group, and it changed my life. It really did. It taught me how to look at things from a kid's perspective and how important it was to really get to know them and to hear about what was going on in their lives. But it also taught me that they aren't going to trust me unless they know a little bit about me. They look in and they see this older woman and who dresses nicely, and they make assumptions about me that aren't necessarily totally true. So capturing kids' hearts starts with good things every class. So I make them stand in a circle. And in the beginning, it's painful because I won't let them sit down until I hear 5 good things. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to tell me 5 things. It just means that out of the 24, 25, 30 kids that are in my class, I have to hear 5 good things. And it can be something as simple as, hey, another student opened the door for me, or I got to go to Taco Bell yesterday. I mean, because to me, that's a good thing, And it's funny when I get notes from seniors that write back and say, thank you for this last year. Good things is always the first thing that they say. They're like, sometimes I hate it when I have to stand up in that circle. But if I'm having a bad day and I hear 5 things that happen, even though they were little things, I get in a better mood automatically, because now I'm thinking, well, dang, I can go to Taco Bell and I'll have a good day too. I mean, it's just, and they get to know each other. So when they come back the next class and it's like, is it anybody's birthday? And we all have to sing, and it's awkward the first couple times, but by the end of the year, man, the people down the hall can hear it, So I do. I think that it's building relationships. The relationship in the classroom is fundamental to them learning, because if they aren't understanding what I am saying, they do not feel awkward turning to the person next to them and saying, she's using words that I've never heard before. Can you kid speak this to me? And they build those bonds. And so if they're not hearing it from me, they don't feel uncomfortable talking to the other people because they know who they are. And I think that that's especially important in my classes where I have so many kids where English is not their first language. So I try to, as we're doing good things, try to bring things out in those conversations to find out who's fluent, who is not, and try to build some kind of a buddy system in there, because unfortunately, I speak only English. That's my deficit. But I want those kids to know that there's somebody else in the classroom that can be there as a helper if they need that,
Now, so your campus put you on, or allowed you to go to camp, or capturing kids' hearts?
They did.
Is there a high percentage of teachers on your campus who do this, or is this a new teacher thing? Are you aware of the process with that?
I do know that a lot of the teachers that are on the campus had the opportunity to go. I know that there's quite a few that I have spoken to that have gone and implement different parts of it. I really haven't talked to very many teachers that do good things every day. But that was just the part that it just sparked imagination in me, because there's so many ways you can take that.
Now, I'm aware of Capturing Kids' Hearts, and they also have the platform of doing the behavior contract.
Right.
So that, do you do that in your classroom, or did you do that in your classroom?
We do kind of a revised version of that, a little looser than what they do. The kids tell me, what their expectations are. I tell them what my expectations are. We kind of talk it down to where it becomes a livable situation. And then I have these banners that hang from the ceiling that they decorated the front sides, and they look like little triangles. And on the back side, it's where it's printed with what that class said for each individual segment of it. And so, if they're sitting there and they look up, that's where it is. To me, when you put it on the poster board and you hang it on the wall, it's just like, if you have 6 classes or 7 classes, it's just 6 or 7 poster boards hanging next to each other. They gotta find theirs on the ceiling, and it's a part of it, but it's not, how do I say this? Behavior is extremely important. And it sets the tone for the whole class. It's visible, but it's not the number one thing that you see when you walk into the classroom. I want the number one thing that they see when they walk into my classroom is to be opportunity, chances to learn, new things. Everything's a little bit different every time. I don't want it to just be strictly behavior, although it's very visible. It's just not the first thing.
Well, that is a challenge with the behavior contract is that if you have multiple teachers doing the Capturing Kids Hearts, sometimes the buy-in is lost with the students and they're just quickly, I know this is what you want me to say. So they quickly go through that process. Did you see that? Because it sounds like you did a little modification.
We did, because, a lot of times I'll give them a blank piece of paper and I don't really do it the very first day because there's so much movement, so it's usually like the beginning or the last day of the first week or the first day of the second week. And I give them scratch pieces of paper and I put the questions on the board, and I tell them to honestly say what they think. And then I break them into groups and they talk about it. And it's funny because as they vote on what it is that they feel is the most important parts, I will look later through what everybody put in there, although I don't know who put it in there, but each group has some of those standardized answers. You know what I mean? To mind, to behave, to put our phones down, and those never made it to the big Post-it note that went to the front, because there were kids within their group that would say, no, wait a minute. They were so specific on some things. We want snacks. So we don't just want snacks that are this. They gave me a list of what was appropriate snacks, and some things I'd never heard. Takis, I'd never heard of Takis before. Now that's probably on me, but I love the fact that they felt comfortable enough to say, hey, Miss Kennedy, you said you love reward systems. Can we have Takis? I mean, it was just like, okay, yes, because they trusted me enough not to think that they weren't focusing on what it was I was asking them to do. They were. They were just being specific enough so that I could meet their needs. And so in turn, when I gave them mine, I became more specific on some things too. Nice. And I don't know, it just seems to work. Now, are there kids that still don't follow any of that? Yes, you're always going to have some outliers, and then you have to come up with a different approach for each of them.
Currently in the news, there's all the talk about diversity. Yes. And things, and you're well aware of the demographics and the diversity on campus, as well as I know yours at the current campus that you're on. So how has diversity of your students influenced your teaching?
Greatly. I am probably one of 2, maybe 3. I've heard of a third one. I haven't seen the big school. White women that are on campus. I am certainly the oldest. And so in this situation, I'm kind of the diversity, but I love to ask questions. And I have learned so much because I want to hear about the customs, the traditions that come from all of my kids' backgrounds, because a lot of them celebrate similar things in very different ways. And it's so much fun in the class to be able to learn about each other and for them to learn about me, because I'm not the face that they see a lot of. So at Thanksgiving, in my classes, we do a Thanksgiving feast, and everybody brings their traditional, something from their Thanksgiving table. They bring it with enough to feed enough, a portion of the class, and to bring a recipe and to tell us about it. And I am such a finicky eater. I mean, before I got married, it was like peanut butter and jelly and cracked macaroni and cheese, and I was all good. And now the things that my husband's got me to eat, it's scary. But I knew going in that I was going to have to try all of these foods that the kids brought. And I have learned to love so many things that I would have never tried. And of course they had to try mine too. And they liked it. But even with some of my African-American students, I didn't understand. And it turned out, it started with just a very small group of kids one day in class. I was sitting down talking to them. This is why they were finishing their work. And then somehow it turned into a whole classroom discussion. I asked them about dating. I said, so in your family, when you date, is it important that you date somebody, within your own ethnicity? Are there rules? I mean, how do your parents feel about that? And then I learned so many different things. And these kids were being so honest, well, I don't tell them, but I do it. Or, well, there's shades of color. And I didn't know any of that. And so then, I mean, the conversation from there, it still kind of popped up every so often. Hey, did you know this? And I think having an open mind and an open heart and be willing to learn helps with diversity. I mean, you have to make the changes as a teacher, but you have to look within your classroom to see where the changes are needed, where the modifications are needed. And sometimes it's not just along race lines, it's or whatever those different, a lot of it's culture too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can't put people into these little pegs, these holes, they don't always fit. Mm-hmm. So you have to listen and you have to be willing to change what you do to fit their needs as well. That sounded very convoluted. I hope that made sense.
It does. But do you get nervous though that a topic or a question that you may have asked could have led or been misunderstood? And if they have a conversation with their parent may say, why is this teacher asking questions like that? Are you worried about things like that?
I try to be really careful in the way that I ask them. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I do is because when I was in high school, my teacher would give us a book like Anna Karenina and say, he wouldn't give us a vocab test. He would just say, any word that's in this book could be on your vocab test. So, your file card index is like this. So my vocabulary is very extensive. And a lot of times I throw words in that I'm not even conscious that I'm throwing in, that I just look in their eyes, just go like this, like, what is she saying? Mm-hmm. And so usually when I ask a question or something that's very sensitive in nature, the first thing that I do is I turn to one of the students and I say, okay, who can restate what I just said in Kid Talk? And I said, because I think I probably threw some words in there that you're going, what does she want? Mm-hmm. Can you rephrase it for me? And there's always a couple that'll say, I got that, and then they'll put it in terms that make sense. And then if they feel like there's something that they needed to add, usually if it's something that I asked that it made them comfortable, they'll restate it in a way that, did you mean this? Or are you asking me this? I mean, so they'll clarify until we get to a point where it's, mm-hmm. I think it's a good topic.
Okay, very nice. So can you give me an example of a professional learning community that you have participated in and how you use the experience?
Again, I have PLCs with the other family consumer science teachers, and we all come from such crazy backgrounds that are so different. One was a migrant worker, one grew up on the street. Another one is a 25-year-old who is now raising his two nephews that are 9 and 10. Another one grew up in very, very poor beginnings. So when I walked in, again, we all just kind of looked at each other and tried to peg it. And then through conversations, realized that we bring so much to the table just because of our backgrounds and our differences. And so when we plan things, it's actually the young man who's 25 and raising his two nephews. He has such bold and brilliant ideas, and sometimes we have to let them kind of filter down because they are so bold. And then we kind of come together and collaborate and figure out, how can we take this thing that's so awesome but so bold, and how can we implement it in small pieces to then make it a change? And I love the fact that in our group, It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your position is or how many years that you've been teaching. If you've got a really great idea, then say it, and then we'll talk through it. And sometimes you throw it on the wall and it just doesn't stick. And then sometimes it's just like you're so excited you can't wait to start it. So I feel very blessed to have the PLCs that I have right now and be able to work with people who are so willing to hear what the other person has to say without bringing judgment in first.
So in your PLC, you have the opportunity of talking with these other family consumer science teachers, although you probably are all teaching something different.
We are.
Okay.
There's nobody teaching the same thing.
Okay. And so you're able to tie in the pieces to help each other.
Right, exactly. A lot of it is sometimes on lesson planning about, especially after when you come back from Christmas and it's that kind of that lull, they're so excited and spring breaks out here and you've got this kind of gap.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just a different idea of getting kids up and moving around. A lot of it comes with social emotional learning. How do we come up with a really great idea that because so many of our students have numerous of us. And so how can we come up with a theme and then come up with 5 different ways of approaching that theme, knowing that at least a couple handfuls of them are going to get it from several different perspectives, but they're going to get that same message.
I wondered about that because we see that often if we have an elective, such as child development,
Right.
and you may have 3 teachers that teach that. But then they're in child development, and then they have another class, maybe human growth and development, or maybe they have principles of human services, which they will all have similar TEKs. The TEK may be different numbered, but it's the similar TEK. So how do you differentiate that? So sounds like that you have a great opportunity of the diversity within there to try to
We do.
figure out the communication is there.
It is.
Yeah.
And, even like with field trips, like at the end of the year, they took students to go see the Career Tech Center. Now, you could have said, okay, it was culinary that was doing that. And it could have just been a culinary field trip. But why? Because the Career Tech Center touches on my field, both of mine, and all of everybody's. There are things that filter up there. So why not go as a group and really be able to talk to students who may have several of us to be able to show that there's more than one option out there to be able to do. And, and they know, the kids know that the 5 of us are very close. So if something happens with one of them, we're all going to know what's happening. And I think where the benefit of that comes in is that if we see a student that is slipping or is becoming less demonstrative or quieter or whatever, that there's one might pick up on it before the others just because of craziness in the classroom. And so we eat lunch together almost every day. And so the question, have you noticed something different with so-and-so? I'm a little concerned. And so then when I go into my classroom and they have them, I'm not saying anything, but I'm looking for signs that maybe there's something going on. And then as a group, we talk about, okay, who knows the student, who has the strongest relationship with the student, to be able to have that conversation with them or to go to the counselor with them or to whatever, but then we know as backup what the conversation was and be able to help. Tag team. I guess that's the best word that I can come up with our team. We're really able to follow up with each other.
So that's very good to hear. That I like hearing the relationships that you have with your other coworkers, something that not everybody has the opportunity. So it's really enlightening to hear as well. As you know, we've had virtual learning. And how did that go for you?
Virtual learning, I think, has great potential for certain students, and there's some that thrive doing virtual learning. Unfortunately, our school district did not require students to turn their videos on. And so you didn't know if they were there or not. I mean, I'd call their name and then it would be like, has Elvis left the building? Where are you? And I think a good example was we had set up interviews as part of the process for our TEKs, and had it all set up. The kids were supposed to come dressed, they had their questions, they had a list of questions, and it was, we got somebody from outside of, the business world to be able to come in and do the interviews. They gave us their time. And one girl, I was like, you have to turn your screen on, and she's having lunch at Chipotle. And it was just,
Wow. Mhm.
those were things that you couldn't control. And I
Mhm.
mean, afterward, and actually the person that interviewed them was very tactful in saying, in real life, if you were to do that in real life, you probably would never get to the next space because you have to show that where you want to work is a priority for you, and so I think it was a lesson learned, not only for her, but for the rest of the class. But there were so many uncontrollable factors, and kids, because of Grace and Mercy and COVID and all the craziness that went on with COVID, I think sometimes, and I like to think of myself as a strong Christian woman, but I think sometimes you got to the point where you weren't helping them because you weren't teaching them that, even if you just do a little bit,
Mhm.
show some effort, do a little bit, then grace and mercy can be found in abundance. But for students who never showed up, who never came to class and were being asked to pass them, I think that was a huge disservice. I mean, I don't know what their circumstances were, but if they would have come and communicated and said, you know what, I mean, I just lost my aunt, my uncle, my mom, my dad, whatever. I mean, I would have gone to their house to help them, but I mean, it's building those relationships, which is really hard to do if you never get to meet the student.
And that was something that was overwhelmingly heard. In addition to that, not being able to build the relationships because even seeing their face, you don't know whose their face is on the other side.
I know.
Yes. And so have you describe a time when you have worked with people with backgrounds different from your own? Were there any challenges?
Yes. Again, I will talk about the 5 because that's my most current. When I came in, they had no clue how to take me. I mean, they just really didn't. They're like, why is this old woman coming to school? And she doesn't dress like us. She doesn't talk like us. She's so different. And I had to prove myself. I mean, I had to prove that the kids were my goal. The kids were my focus. And I got up every day and got dressed and went to school because of the kids. And I think when they started realizing that that was true, that it wasn't to make me better. All of them are on track to get their graduate degrees. I am the only one who is not. And I keep explaining, I think they thought that I was really odd that I didn't want to do that. And I said, you guys have to understand, I have been the leader. I have been the boss. I have done that. I don't feel the need to do that. I just want to be the very best teacher I can be. I don't want to compete with you at all. I just want you to teach me from your vast experience how I can be the best at fashion and interior design, because this is my world. And I will support you and help you get to whatever world you want to go to. But this is mine. And I am so happy. And every year, I just want to be a better teacher. I want to have new ideas. I want to change things up. I want to make it fun and exciting for the kids to come to class.
That's encouraging to hear because we hear so many teachers, especially right now, they're in the I'm done. They're in the burnout and things like that. But you have that desire to want to keep and to learn so you can see, you can hear the passion in you.
Yeah.
And we need more teachers like you.
Well, thank you.
Thank
you.
Campuses would be, it'd be their advantage to have teachers such as yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Most certainly that you proved it yourself. So on our campus, we have CTSOs, and those are the Career Technical Service Organizations. We have 8 of them, and it is a time commitment in various topics. So for instance, in Family Consumer Science, there is an FCCLA chapter, and there is also a TAFE chapter. Would you be interested in doing an advisor in any of those? And do you have any?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, if you want to build these relationships with the kids in the classroom, you have to have the relationship outside of the classroom. They have to know that no matter what, they can come to you. I want my kids to know, man, if they're in a position of some kind of danger or whatever, I don't care where they are. I want them to know they know how to email me. You know what I mean? But you get to know them so much better through these organizations, and the time commitment is really nothing when you think about it. But to be able to go to these competitions with these kids and see and help them from an advisory standpoint, which sometimes is really hard because I really want to tell them, I want to get in there and do it. I want to compete.
Mm-hmm.
But to watch them work together and to create these things that you never thought they could do, and then to go in and compete at such a high level.
Mhm.
And when they walk up and they get their ribbon and just the grin on their face, and sometimes it's all that it takes is to get involved in a CTSO for a kid to be able to believe that they have what it takes.
So have you had the opportunity at your current school to be part of a club?
I have FITM, which is a fashion design institute out of New York, has an opportunity for a fashion club, and we have been doing it through FITM this year. I don't know that I would want to do it through another group. I think I would really want it to be a true school club going forward, or at least a district club going forward. But it was wonderful. I had so many kids in fashion club. We had about 50 members, and a lot of them never took fashion design. They were just kids who were excited about fashion and they wanted to come check it out. And so they came in, man, we did so many cool things. We tie-dyed shirts, we painted jeans and added fabric and things. I mean, we drew croquis for everybody, because you have to learn how to draw the model before you can sketch the clothing. And it was 50-50 male female, which I thought was so surprising, because even in my classes, I would say that it's probably 70% female, 30% male. Interior probably has a few more males than fashion, but they're coming up. I mean, they signed up for this club and they're coming, and we met 3 times a month. So they came and they came and they came because it was always something fun going on. So yes, matter of fact, that is pretty much a prerequisite for me for any place that I go, is that I have the opportunity to be involved in some kind of club so that I can get to know these kids, because all you got to do is get to know a few and they will bring their friends, and those friends will give you a chance.
Very nice. With that, did you see the difference? Did your FITM grow over the course of the year? Or did you just see, how did that look by the beginning of the year to the end of the year?
FITM well, you have to realize that FITM had 5 members through COVID, and they did it through Zoom. That was previous to me.
Mhm.
And so in the beginning of the year, we had so many people. We did have a president this year who was probably not the strongest choice for president, who tried to make it more about her and less about the club. And so the kids that could continue to come were the ones that were willing to overlook that. And we did lose quite a few members that came back at the end of the year, which was interesting, and said, we're going to be there next year. So the president was already there before I came. So we worked around what we did the best that we could, but we had a great time. And I cannot wait to see what will happen with that club looking back after I left, as to what they've done with it next year, because it has so much potential. It has so much potential.
Well, I've heard some wonderful things and some nice attributes and qualities about yourself. Do you have any questions for me and the campus?
I do. What would you say the atmosphere is about functions that get teachers together to get to know each other?
Well, that is a good question. We are still trying to come back from our COVID. And so with all the new teachers, I feel as the principal, I need to do a better job in trying to make sure that my new teachers, whether they come in at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, or towards the end of the year, because we did have some changes last year, multiple changes over the course of the year, but I need to do better to make sure that I am drawing in my new teachers. So they feel like they are part of the culture and the campus. And so they will want to come back. And so those are some things that I'm looking at, some various different techniques that we can do. I'm definitely trying to grow a better team building atmosphere, and doing it across curricular. So our math teachers don't just know math, and our English only know English. It was brought to my attention. We kind of get into a little tunnel, and it was brought to my attention that at our last faculty meeting in May, that when we had teachers up there, there was quite a few that were like, I don't know who that is. And
Right.
so I realized I did some reflection that there were some changes I needed to do to make sure that we bring this campus together as one. And I will do better to make sure that our new teachers, as I said, feel that they fit in as well as know people. And, I know there's a part that I have to do, and I'm working on that to ensure that for our new teachers.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, there's like 300 teachers on a lot of high school campuses,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of people. And it's, sometimes overwhelming, just to feel like somebody and at least one person in all the hallways. So I think that that's kind of my goal is wherever I go to make sure that I am not insulated, that I get to know the other teachers in all departments, and because it's important. And I'm glad to hear that there will be opportunities at your school to be able to accomplish that.
We are also looking at adding some additional leadership opportunities for teachers. We're going to open it up in the fall for seeing what the interest is. First of all, not everybody, they just want to lead a classroom. So it wouldn't be in the best interest of students to put someone that I feel is a good leader and to put them into a higher capacity that maybe they're not ready for. So we're going to take an interest level or do a needs assessment on things like that, but in hopes to grow our current teachers into be more leaders or higher leaders. And so it's not just the same people, because we have roughly 281 on campus. And I know that department heads aren't our only leaders. I know our coaches aren't only the leaders, but I don't know who the other leaders are.
Okay.
So we need to address, who are these other leaders? But we are opening up other avenues to accommodate and to grow those leader opportunities for our current staff.
Are there opportunities during the school year for teachers to be able to get some of the required training?
Well, state says that unfortunately you cannot do that during the school day. So obviously, if you're going to work on any professional development, it will have to be after hours. The district does provide opportunities within content areas. CTE is a little challenging. CTE encompasses their own trainings. So if there's not a lot of opportunities in the district level, we also are part of Education 10, the Service Center Region 10. So you can always utilize that. And
Okay.
there's quite a few opportunities out there. I know we're living in the southern part of the district or our area, so it does make a trek to go to Richardson. So it is a deterrent for others. But maybe if you can get one of the new or one of your cohorts to go with you and make it, an opportunity.
Right.
They do offer things on the weekend as well, if that's accommodating to your schedule. And
Yeah, I
things.
just like to get it done during the school year so that during the summer, I don't have that pressure. Summers just, I try not to think about school that much, at least not until August or late July. So I like to get those things out of the way. And it's nice to hear that they do offer things after school and on the weekends to be able to fulfill that need.
One thing that we did ask, and I like what you said or hear what you say about the summer, are teachers who are staying or returning, we did ask them what their plans were over the summer. So they could start to plan what their summer would look like. But obviously, as a new teacher coming in, if there is time, we can teach you. They will onboard you to teach you how to use our system to look. If not, we'll mentor you up and you'll get a mentor who will help you walk through that process
Okay.
of how to get into our systems and learn how we work around here on campus and or in the district.
And that's really important because, every time you switch school districts, it seems like they use a different software, not only for grading, but also, for putting assignments, whether it's Canvas or, there's so many different things that are out there. And, it's the older you get, the harder it is to switch sometimes. I mean, I am not as techie as a lot of the newer students, but I am also not afraid to ask a student to show me how to do it.
And that's a great thing to know.
It is.
It
It is.
And the students probably enjoy being
Oh,
able
they
to help a
do.
teacher.
They do. And
So-
I'm not afraid to ask. The teacher I used to teach next to me, she came over almost every day to show me something. But, that's how a great friendship was built.
Mhm.
So I'm not afraid to ask questions. But sometimes when it comes to changes in technology, it takes me a little bit longer. And not a whole lot, but I'm just being honest. It does take me a little bit longer. But once I get it, I got it.
Very nice. Very nice. Any additional questions for me?
No, I thank you so much for your time. I am excited at the opportunity to at least have had this moment with you to tell you a little bit about me and what I'm looking for. And you seem like the type of principal that I would really, really admire and love to work for.
Well, I appreciate you very much for coming in. Like I said, I
Sure.
know the summer hours, it is challenging. So I'm trying to find time to come in, as well as, and in the heat right now, we know that's a situation. So I do appreciate
Yes.
you very much. So
Oh, absolutely.
thank you very much.
Thank
Nice
you so much
meeting
for
you.
your time. Bye-bye.